and welcome to Off the Ruck, your weekly rugby breakdown with me, John Ferguson. Wow, the Greatest Rivalry Tour has just finished its first test match, and if you don't know the result, look away because I'm about to tell you the All Blacks win with a very solid victory in the end. 33 points to 16 at Ellis Park. What an occasion, what a test match. We're going to go through all the key moments. We're going to go through some stats, and we're definitely going to talk about some of the key players in this match because there were a lot of them. Please let us know what you think in the conversation, in the discussion below. Like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up if you like the content and if you liked that game because, wow, that was just absolutely scintillating, attritional, tough, ferocious rugby. And I would expect nothing less from number 1v2 at 1,753 meters above sea level there at Ellis Park. It was just absolutely amazing. Now let's get straight into it, shall we? Before the game, Razzie Erasmus asked the people of Ellis Park to be quiet during the haka to be able to fully hear it. And everyone, almost everyone in the stadium absolutely did. I'm sure there were a few people in there that, by the sounds of it on the sound effects mics, had a few too many beers in the lead up and they definitely were not quiet. But the majority of the stadium stayed quiet and they were just absolutely amazing to see the haka there at Ellis Park and to hear it properly. I got goosebumps during the haka, I got goosebumps during both the national anthems and the flyover, the classic flyover with the two planes. I just don't know how they do it. They look like they fly so close together. But yeah, just absolutely amazing cinema kind of stuff in the lead up in the game. But to the actual game, we'll just go through the key moments in the game and then we'll go into some key stats and some general themes in the game. So Roygaard's actually charged down from his first box kick of the game. Nervy moments for a guy who's barely played the Springboks. And I mean, it was called offside for Eben Etzebeth there at the ruck. He was a little bit too quick there off the mark, but nonetheless, that is a way to get into the head of a number 9 if you get there charged down, done nice and early. So nerves there for Cam Roygaard early. But the way that the All Blacks were trying to run the game, as everyone kind of predicted, they were trying to make passes, they were trying to make runs from absolutely everywhere. But that didn't stop, and that actually fed into the fact that Marks, De Villiers, and Visa all got steals very early at the breakdown. Some of them clean, some of them penalties, but they were just absolutely relentless there at the breakdown. And the All Blacks definitely early looked rocked and definitely a little bit shook by the amount of pressure that the Springboks put at the breakdown. I'm not sure that it's not that they weren't expecting it, but nonetheless, it's one thing to expect it, it's another thing to stop it. They just weren't clinical enough in their carry and cleans. Then the box again, they get pinged a couple of times early. Not a lot of penalties against them in the first half, really, but they do get pinged early for being offside, just over eager, perhaps keen just to make an impression, to get in the mind of the kickers and of the players of the All Blacks. But yeah, it was to their detriment. So the All Blacks actually got out of jail quite early a few times when they were camped in their own half and couldn't quite exit the way that they wanted to. Curly Aronson goes off in the 9th minute with a HIA, and that causes a reshuffle in the back line. Jesse Creel goes to the wing. Andre Esterhazy in the mountain. Andre the Giant, sorry, goes into 12, and Damien Dealande goes to 13. Curly Aronson does not return from that HIA. So TBC on what he's going to be like for next week's tests, but I would assume that he's not in. But we'll wait to hear from like specific confirmation from the Springbok camp a little bit later, probably tomorrow or the day after. Just letting you guys know, it is actually 3:30 a.m. when I'm recording this. I'm in Australia. I'm pretty tired, but nonetheless, it was an absolutely scintillating game, and it definitely the adrenaline and the nerves kept me up. So, yeah, no coffee needed. I'm gonna go straight back to bed after this. But yeah, amazing game that I got up in the middle of the night for. Um, so yeah, Curly rounds are off. That causes the reshuffle, but that doesn't stop the Springboks from using Andre's absolute power and mass to score a try a couple of minutes later. He runs over Josh Morby. It was a pretty meager attempt at a tackle. Andre's really massive and hard to tackle, but nonetheless probably should have made that tackle near your own line. First scrum of the game was just absolutely as dominant as you like from the Springboks. We knew that they would dominate this area, and they absolutely did. For all the talk in the lead up that the All Blacks would be able to kind of hold the fort and to be able to hold out, own the storm, They were not. It was just absolutely domination. It was giving me flashbacks back to Wellington. It really was. They were like going backwards at a rate of knots. It was just absolutely immense. The Springboks were amazing this part of the game. So, yeah, not great first signs from your scrum there either. For Josh Morby's try there early in the first half, it was a great bounce back to the blind side. Tupou Vaa'i was definitely getting some pay in the wider channels when he was staying out there and holding the paint, particularly off lineouts on whatever side the lineout was on. And the All Blacks were getting outside of the rush defense. Some of it was fool's gold space that they found. Others they actually genuinely found space. And for Josh Morby's try, that really, really quick, nice ball handling skills, really, really deft skills in the 5 meter channel. That's what paid off for that try. Then we'll fast forward to the 37th minute, and just before halftime, Ethan de Groot and Josh Lord, so the All Blacks premier loose head prop and their loose head lock, clash heads while trying to make a tackle on Jasper Visa, who Jasper Visa was just an absolute gain line menace for the Springboks all night. He was absolutely amazing, but unfortunately, head clash between Ethan de Groot and Josh Lord trying to make a tackle on Jasper Visa, and they both go off not to return. Bauer comes on instead of Ethan de Groot at loose head prop, and then Tupou Vaa'i shifts into the second row with Simon Parker on at number 6. So big reshuffle already, attritional already. That's 3 players in total, 2 on the All Blacks, 1 on the Springbok side that have been changed. This is all before halftime. So that was in the 37th minute. Bauer's first scrum was pretty decent. So definitely steadied stemmed the flow there from a penalty perspective and a dominance perspective. So yeah, really, really impressive with Bauer early on in his scrummaging efforts, and that was halftime. So at halftime, it was 13-12, sorry, to the Springboks. So the Springboks are up when they head into halftime. Absolutely crucial because they actually really were the dominant side in the first half. And had they not come away leading that, I think they would have been going into the sheds asking a few more questions of themselves. But nonetheless, they went in leading at halftime. So then at halftime, it becomes clear that the scrum stability from the All Blacks was only temporary. George Bauer went back at a rate of knots, just like the other scrum did when the All Blacks finally got their shunt back on. So the first scrum in the second half, so the first scrum by George Bauer at the end there, the first half, and the first scrum by George Bauer in the second half were decent, not dominant by any stretch of the imagination, just decent. They held their own, and then after that, just started getting absolutely demolished. Almua definitely helped to steady that flow as well when he came on, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a start from Almua next test because he was absolutely stellar in the scrum. He added shunt and power, he added aggression in the defensive line, and he added another genuine ball carrying option, which I think the All Blacks were a little bit short on. But we'll get more on that in just a moment. The turning point really came in the 47th minute when Fabian Holland got a charge down try on Grant Williams' box kick. That was absolutely crucial. It was the first time they took the lead, and they went into the lead 21-16 once that conversion came on over. Oh, sorry, no, 19-16 with the conversion coming over, and they didn't relent the lead from there. So they didn't concede any points, and they didn't give up the lead, obviously. So that was the major turning point. 47 minutes in already, it was telling, and it was just one of these things where people were wondering whether the Springboks were going to run out of puff or they were going to get unstuck, and that's absolutely what did indeed started to happen. In the 62nd minute, there was a big shuffle in the Box backline because Colby limps off the field, so yet another casualty to the injury ward there, and that pushes Reinach to go on at number 9, and that shifts Grant Williams out to the wing. So the replacements for the backs for the Springboks used very, very early in this game, unfortunately. I mean, 62nd minute, not that early, but you don't want to be bringing on your halfback and then putting another halfback to the wing. I know Grant Williams has the speed to do it, but not ideal. You would like to be able to keep your wingers on for the whole game. So let's see what the 2 scrum cap wearing lightning bolts and blitzbok for the Springboks are going to look like facing up for test number 2, because it would be a shame to miss those 2 for game number 2. In the 66th minute, Jordan comes up with a double tackle and then a pilfer penalty. That is just another one of those things where he went after it all game. I don't know if he had a particular charter to be able to do that, and he was told to do that all game, but he was definitely getting in and around the breakdown more often than not, and he got pay out of it on this occasion. And it was definitely just another thing that perpetuated the momentum shifting in the favor of the All Blacks. And this was compounded a couple of minutes later, which I'll get to. But Vessels came on, and this is probably one of the most bizarre situations that I've seen from the front row. So if anyone from South Africa can please explain if there's precedent on this or this is what you guys expected. So um, Jan Hendrik Vessels, the reserve hooker, came on for Gerhard Steenkamp, the loose head prop reserve. So number 16 came on to replace number 17 midway through the second half, so in the 66th minute. Yet they didn't take Malcolm Marx off. I know that he's obviously absolutely the cornerstone of their forward pack, along with Peter Steph Dutoy, Eben Etzebeth, etc. But it was just really weird. So they replaced a reserve front row, one of the most powerful scrummagers. Gerhard Steenkamp had the the All Blacks scrum on roller skates in Wellington last year, I believe, but they replace him with the reserve hooker. I know that he can play prop. That's not what confuses me, but why replace a replacement with a replacement? So if someone in South Africa can let me know what kind of was going on there, that'd be really, really great, because I found that a really peculiar kind of shift. And Porthen, the youngster, he stayed on there on the tight head side, I believe. So the scrum wasn't as dominant once all these changes were made, and I'm not surprised, because you just can't make four different changes to your scrum and expect the exact same result, especially when the All Blacks kind of consolidated their scrummaging. So in this from the 66th minute onwards, the scrum wasn't as much of a dominant point from the Springboks. And it definitely wasn't so when Marco van Staden got a yellow card after a massive line break by the All Blacks, and he dove over the ruck when they were under pressure to tackle Cam Roygaard, the number 9 at the back of the ruck. So he went off for a yellow card, and then literally at the scrum that was called from that penalty, 5 meters out from the Springboks line, Cobus Reinach, the reserve halfback, gets done for being offside and interfering with the pass knock forward. Like, it would have been classified as slap down. So that's 2 yellow cards with 10 minutes remaining. Marco van Staden would have come on with only a couple of seconds left. Reinach would not have played any minutes further. So they're down to 13 at this point. And a couple of set pieces later, a couple of penalties later, Will Jordan walks in for a try on the right hand side, and that seals the game for the All Blacks, 33-16. So we'll just quickly go through some key themes in this game. Springbok scrum, already spoken about that, but absolutely entirely dominant. That was predicted, and everyone knew that would happen. And I just couldn't believe that it was so consistent for 66 minutes, almost a little bit more. So yeah, like a lot of work to do for the All Blacks in that space. Lineout was a bit iffy for both sides. Delivery, even when they got a ball clean, wasn't great. So definitely something for both sides to look at and work on. I mean, it was a hotly contested lineout situation, but some of them that even they weren't the cleanest. So definitely something to work on there. Springboks dominate the gain line. Springboks were dominating aerially. Like, in the first half, they had completely their own way in the air. Like, it was just that they had their pick. It was just standard Bok play, but it was so dominant, and like it was telling. The All Blacks were really feeling it. So, really well done from the Springboks there. Springboks really struggling though to be clinical in the 22-meter zone, in the A zone of the All Blacks, because they weren't walking away with enough points, and I just don't think that you can beat the All Blacks this series by not scoring tries. So there was 5 tries scored by the All Blacks, 1 try scored by the Springboks. The rest of the points came from penalty goals. I think there were 3 of them. So I just yeah, not not ideal for the Springboks, and I think it actually came down to ball handling. They just weren't quite clinical on their carry. They weren't clinical on their cleans. The All Blacks definitely getting a lot of pay at the breakdown and messing that up. I think that probably the All Blacks were lucky to escape without a yellow card for some of the amount of penalties they conceded, because definitely conceded around 10 in the first half. But I think just not having enough time and kicking penalty goals in the All Blacks, 30 meter to their try line really didn't pay off for the Springboks. Definitely could have heaped the pressure on a little bit more, particularly using the scrum as a weapon. So I think that's something that they'll look to do next week in the next test. Uh, Skullberger in commentary afterwards called it a rope-a-dope just because um, how dominant the Springboks were early, and they just didn't walk away with points. So something absolutely Rassie Erasmus and the Springboks coaching team will be looking to address, because next week they'll want to go in and to prove a point, and they'll have to score more tries and they have to be more clinical. And I have no doubt that they will be able to do that. It was absolutely attritional, as we've already spoken about. So for the Springboks, who went off with injury, it was um, Curtly Aronsar, Cheslin Colby, uh, unsure whether Oxen Che looked 100% when he went off. He went off, I think, in the 49th minute or something like that. So only played a few minutes in the second half. I know he's coming back from injury, but yeah, that right leg looked pretty heavily strapped. And then for the All Blacks, obviously, Ethan de Groot, HIA, Josh Lord, HIA. So really, really bad to lose two of your engine room blokes and one of your probably your best loose head scrummager, although George Bauer did pretty well and Xavier Numia should be back next week. The final things that I'll just touch on before we finish up here is just the key players. So Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu for the Springboks, Jasper Visa for the Springboks, just absolutely amazing. I think they were two of the absolute shining lights. There was obviously players like Peter Steph Dutoy, Eben Etzebeth, Malcolm Marks that were doing absolute great stuff throughout the field and throughout the game, but they were X factor moments and they were the difference making moments from Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu and Jasper Visa and Malcolm Marks. I'd probably pick those three as my top Springboks players. Colby had some nice moments with his footwork and some good stuff aerially and defensively, actually, but nonetheless. And quick special shout out to Damien Willems as well at the back. Man, he's a solid player, like as in like physically solid. He's a great player, but man, he's physically solid. Like he's just, yeah, he's gone to another level, really. Absolutely amazing. For the All Blacks, Cam Roygaard, pretty crucial. Ruben Love had a pretty decent game. Extremely impressed with Xavier Numia off the bench. Tupavai did what he needed in the wider channels. Probably needs to be a little bit direct. Artie Sevilla looked undercooked. I don't know what you guys think, but he did not look as dominant or as impactful as he usually is. So definitely some highlights elsewhere. I'd have to go with Tyra Lomax, pretty decent. I think he's still getting back to his best. Wouldn't be surprised if Almore starts, as I mentioned. Will Jordan, Will Jordan is probably the best back for the All Blacks. So top three players for the All Blacks. I probably have to go Will Jordan, both defensively and attacking. Cam Royger, the 9, really setting the pace there. I know he wasn't perfect, but definitely setting the pace there. And then Fabian Holland. Fabian Holland got through the absolute graft, never stopped running, had to play 80 minutes for a big man at altitude. Yeah, got that charge down try as reward. He was absolutely ecstatic at the end. Yeah, what a game. But please, guys, let me know what you think. It was an absolutely stellar test match. I actually cannot wait for more to come. But now I'm actually going to just recover, rethink, do some analysis on this game, bring you more content throughout the week, and then hopefully we'll be able to get more and more from the camps on injuries, rotations leading into the next test. I know that we've got the Lions game coming up for the club games, but the real thing that we're worried about right now is the tests. So it'd be interesting to see who All Blacks throw out for that game against the Lions. But yeah, let me know what you think. Hope you like the content on here. Like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up if you like it, and share it with people because I'd love to reach more rugby lovers around the globe. So from me to you, at 3:45 a.m. I'm going to go to bed. I'll see you on the next video. Ciao for now.